Hey everyone, we got some great news out of Palantir latest quarterly presentation, and I know that might be surprising because Palantir's stock was down over 6% the day after it announced its earnings results. But regardless of the stock price fluctuation, there was good news that came out of Palantir. That's what I'm going to talk about in this video here. And so the slide I have pulled up is from Palantir's latest presentation, and it talks about Palantir's RPO, which stands for Remaining Performance Obligations. And let me talk a little bit about that before I get into the numbers. Remaining performance obligations is what Palantir has to record when it signs a contract. Then, when Palantir performs those obligations that it signed the contract for, it can recognize that as revenue. So it's an accounting framework that Palantir has to follow, because when it signs a contract for, let's say, $18 million, it can't just record that 18 million as revenue right away. Typically, it takes time for Palantir to perform its services, and so it needs to record that contract on a rated basis over the time of the contract. So let's say it takes Palantir 18 months to perform the duties in that contract of 18 million, it will record 1 million in revenue over those 18 months. And so remaining performance obligations gives you a sneak peek into Palantir's prospects for revenue over the next 3, 6, 9 months for the short-term RPO, and then for longer-term RPO over the next 2, 3, 5 years. So that's what was great news for Palantir. Let's dig into the numbers now that we've talked about what RPO means. So if you look at second quarter RPO and then third quarter RPO for Palantir in 2022, you notice that RPO peaked at 1.25 billion in the third quarter of 2022, but that's when the fears of a recession really were at their heights. Worldwide economies were facing this unprecedented soaring inflation that central banks worldwide had to fight by increasing interest rates, which usually results in slowing economic activity. And so businesses anticipating a recession really pulled back spending. They said, where can we cut spending? Where can we pause projects? Where can we delay spending? And Palantir was one of the enterprises that experienced that slowdown, right? Because Palantir sells its services to businesses, and businesses fearing a recession pulled back their spending, right? Now, Palantir does also sell its services to governments, but it's governments and business and even institutions inside the government, when they fear a recession, they might pull back spending, they might pause spending, because if there's a recession, there's decreasing tax revenue, and so they feel like they need to pull back spending as well. So from the third quarter 2022 to the fourth quarter 2022, look at that big pullback from 1.25 billion in RPO to 973 million in RPO. A big slowdown, especially when you consider Palantir is a growth company that's been growing rapidly over the years. And so this was a dramatic pullback, and the bigger side of it was in long-term remaining performance obligations, right? If you're in a position where you're fearing a recession, but you need these services and you don't want to pause or cancel, what you might do is just say, all right, let's just do it on a month-to-month basis, or let's just do it for the next 3 months. What's the shortest time frame we can sign a deal for, right? And so you might not pull back on all of the short-term obligations, but you don't want to sign a 3-year or a 5-year contract. And so long-term RPO declined from 699 million to 456 million, and then again it declined in the first quarter of 2023 from 456 million to 407 million. And so the risks were increasing inside Palantir, like, what's going to happen here? Is this just going to keep falling? When are businesses and governments going to feel comfortable signing long-term contracts again? And so here's where the good news came in, that RPO rebounded and accelerated in the second quarter here in the latest update. Long-term RPO bounced higher from 407 million to 410 million. Short-term RPO from 529 to 558 million. And so overall RPO finally increased again from 936 to 968 million. But the bigger news is not just the small, what is that, a 32 million increase in terms of RPO. The bigger news is just a change in direction. It's not going downward anymore. Sentiment has changed. Businesses and institutions are not afraid to spend anymore. They're not in the cutback mindset. They're in the, okay, let's get things back on track now. We've paused and delayed for long enough. Let's get things back on track. Let's get back to business. That's the bigger good news for Palantir stock and for Palantir stock investors. But that's all I've got for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.